Hi everyone, I'm Rajita Lalani. I am a software engineer at Slack and I am currently in my denim era, as you can see. Um, I I have been an IC all my career, around 15 years. And I love being an IC and have learned some tricks on the way in terms of how to influence as an IC. The skill set is a little bit different than what you would do as a manager or a product owner. So I thought this would be an interesting session. If you have any questions, feel free to post it in the Q&A box so we can address it at the end. I'm hoping that we'll have some time to answer some of the questions as well. Um, Outside of being being an engineer, I am mom of two young boys, which take up most of my time. And when people ask me like, "What hobbies do you have?" I used to have hobbies before them. Now it's all about them. I love talking to our customers. I'm not one of those ICs who just does that IC thing. I love talking to customers, sharing what we're building for them. And I also try like new adventurous stuff. So if anyone has any running tips, please give to me. I'm trying to run another half marathon after 4 years. So that's coming up. Outside of that, I also love to mentor women and girls in technology. My favorite organization is Tech Women, which is a global mentorship program. Happens every year. Um, and yeah, that is Half Dome. I did that as a thing that I wanted to do at some point. It was fun. Before we get into actual influencing, I have some myths versus reality slides, which I thought would help set context for the conversation that we are going to have. Um, there's a myth. If you imagine an engineer, or if you tell anyone that you are an engineer or technology person, they will think of an IC individual contributor as someone who sits in a mom's basement in dark without like too much going on and just like coding stuff, right? That is definitely part of our jobs. I'm not gonna lie, but it is. I don't like to be in dark. First of all, second of all, it's not something that you can do if you're a senior IC and one are trying to maximize your impact. To maximize your impact, you need to work with people. You need to share your ideas with other people and bring them along so that your impact is maximized and it's not just what you can do but it's what others can do because you brought them along as well. um, ICs don't lead people. I used to say this early on in my career a lot, that I don't want to lead people, I don't want to manage people, so I'm going to do be an individual contributor. But quickly in my career I learned that you don't essentially manage people directly, but you are leading them by influencing them. And hence, not influencing without authority, which we'll talk about later, is a huge thing when you are an um, IC leader. Another thing I've heard is, I'm just an IC. What do I know? I'm like working on this epic, I'm working on this story. I'm not what I do. I don't understand the business side. I don't need to understand it. But in reality, the most senior ICs in the companies are the ones who are trying to help achieve business goals, right? At end of the day, we are all trying to work for a business, or most of us are working for a for-profit company. So you kind of have to achieve the business goals. And if you understand the technology stack and how it's designed, you are at the best position to know what's possible, what are the low-hanging fruits, what are the things that need more energy invested in it, or long-term plans. Um, Next one is, you have to eventually choose management to get promoted. I mean, this is true in a lot of companies because they don't have great IC ladders, but essentially, like, I have seen ICs who have been ICs for like 30, 40 years. They sometimes dabble their feet in like management, and it is a natural transition for a lot of people. But if you don't want to be a people manager, like, it's not like you're doomed or something like that. You can always be an IC. A lot of people spend their entire careers being an individual contributor. And for me personally, being an IC, do what role of an IC looks like in my company brings me joy, and that makes me want to go to work every day. So I definitely want to be an IC for at least next couple years or 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. Um, Another thing, IC is an individual contributor. People who don't manage people directly. I see a question in the chat. Individual contributors in different companies are the ones who are driving the technical roadmap in some way or fashion. But at a very senior level, you can't expect an IC to do 10 different things, right? That this is a checklist that you are a senior leader, you are a staff engineer, you are a senior staff engineer. So even in my company at Slack, we have different archetypes for a senior individual contributor leaders. Um, so tech lead is one of the most common terms that you all might have heard. They are the ones who kind of steer complex projects, making sure cross-functional dependencies are taken care of, and also making sure the team has enough interesting to work on while driving the technical vision. Architects are also it's a very common term, but there's also stigma associated with that they don't code a lot of times. And in a new modern world, architects are kind of like uh, not not is not a role that a lot of companies have. Architects usually oversee the technical integrity of a domain or a business altogether. They know the long-term plan, they know the plan, they know how the what the evolution of this is going to look like, and they make sure they work towards it. Solvers, they are also, these are the terms that may or may not be used directly, but these are kind of personas that someone might use. Some of you might have seen in your companies as well. These are the solvers, are the people who are like given, for example, one problem statement for a company like Slack could look uh, like use find use cases for generative AI at Slack, for example, and that is probably like someone starts thinking about it, thinks prototypes a little bit, looks at the domains around them, and figures out like what is possible, and they provide solutions to most complex problem with a lot of ambiguity involved in it, and they eventually, like once they figure out what the path forward looks like, they are not probably the ones executing the whole thing. They might be like working with different teams, different domains to achieve it. Right hands, or you might have heard strategic advisors, like engineers in CTO's office or something like that. Those are basically advisors to senior leadership, focusing on critical business problems that kind of spans outside of technology, like it's intersection between technology, business, and sometimes organization. Now you almost like you all be thinking like, what's going on? Like, let's talk about influencing. We are talking about influencing here, right? How do you be a good influencer as an individual contributor? I have 4 points. All of them are very important, and we are going to dive a little bit deeper into them. Influencing without authority is definitely the main one. How do you do that? There are different ways and ways you can achieve that. Getting recognized as an expert in your company, in your team, in your organization definitely helps you influence. Once people trust you, you might be able to influence them a little bit easily than otherwise. Um, how do you network intentionally to make sure that you're influencing the right people, or influencing um, the folks that are in the rooms when you're not in those rooms, and also managing up. Um, how do you do this influencing without authority, which means you're not managing the people that you're working with, so you kind of can't like boss people around and tell them what to do. Instead, you communicate your vision clearly by either writing a tech spec or an RFC, or you basically are socializing your ideas in a way that people are bought into the problems that you're trying to solve, and they're convinced that this is the right way of solving the problem. You also, like a lot of times I've also heard people say that, hey, I think this is a great thing for the business, but no one wants to work on it. So for that, like a lot of companies have different ways of measuring success for a team or an organization. OKRs are very common. So if you can align what you're building, quantifying it, so measuring the impact of your work. Examples could look like it will actually help us build future. If we have the building blocks laid properly, we can build the SDK deliver the SDK quickly to our customers, and we can build on top of the features quickly. And the quickly can kind of translate to a time or sprints or however you measure work or velocity of the team. Um, Sometimes there's a very big tech debt problem, and you are thinking about like how do I get investment from product here, because product always wants to build something new. So if you quantify that tech debt as something that would help you guys address your customers need or build features quickly on top of, that's one way of kind of measuring the impact of your work. And if that impact is measurable and it aligns to the business in some way, then it'll be easier to get a buy-in from people and investment from people in the company. And you also need to change your pitch depending on whom you're talking to, who is the stakeholder here, who are you trying to influence it, and you need to change the narrative and pitch depending on what motivates others, right? So it's not like you have one presentation for everyone, but like you need to be able to communicate to folks in the language that they understand. Um, Another very important uh, aspect of influencing is like people who are actually recognized as an expert are the ones that people listen to or people trust, right? And there are two ways that if you close your eyes and think about a senior IC leader in your company, they are either like a subject matter expert of a domain and they know that domain in and out. They know what that domain is going to be like 5 years later. They know what problems they faced in past. They know it so well that they can literally tell what the potential of that particular area is going forward and how it can help the business. Another way of doing it is if you go to a person, if you think about a person whom you go to for any questions within the company, they will be able to help you out either by answering those questions or like pointing you to the people that can help or um, things like that. So either you go deep or wide is a way of getting recognized and as an expert. And if you are hired as a senior IC leader at a company, you're new at a company, that is a challenge, right? Because neither you are a subject matter expert yet, nor you kind of know everything to be able to help people out. So you kind of have to learn the team, learn the product, start from the bottom, get your hands dirty. Don't be afraid of like assigning yourself smaller tasks or bugs so that you can learn the code base a little bit and also gain team's trust. It's easier for people to trust you and easier for you to bring your industry experience that you might have to the company or the team if people trust you and they want to listen to you rather than you're acting against them in some way. So definitely work with your team. Um, Another thing, this is kind of a little bit of an introspective exercise. If you all like wherever you are at, close your eyes and think about what your org charts look like. Not just your org chart, your manager, their manager, but like what other business domains and how does their org chart looks like. Think about that and also identify like if you are trying to do certain thing, for example, pitch a new idea that would be you driven for your team or your company, and think about who would be the key decision makers there. uh, and now that org chart, the key decision makers, and try to do an intersection of them and see how many of those key people do you know, how many of those key people would know you and what your work is and what you're good at and what your skill sets are. Um, I genuinely think that this exercise has helped me a lot in understanding the gaps in terms of where I could network with some people or get to know some people. One really interesting example here is if you want to change the way the customer centric engineering or customer engineers report bugs to your teams, or you are basically thinking of how you want them to do that process, who would be the people that you would need to know? Maybe the CE representatives, maybe like a senior engineering manager leader. Um, Identify those people and try to know them, their motivations personally, so that it would help you network intentionally. And the line I want you to remember, one key takeaway from this is like you are not going to be in all the rooms where the decisions are made. So a lot of times you're influencing the influencers. Influence the people who can be your voice in the rooms that you're not in. Um, Managing up. This is like number one skill. I want to urge you to think of your manager as not the boss that assigns you your work. They are not someone you work for, but they are someone that you work with. Manager is not just your coach or a champion who is teaching you how to work in a big technology company. You are more of like learning and aligning with your manager and their motivation, and also trying to help them achieve their goals. So if you want to expand your scope of influence rather than doing the work that's assigned to you, you might want to learn what motivates your manager, what's top of their mind. You want to maybe do a skip level and understand what is the motivation of your manager's manager, your VP, your SVP. Like, try to see what's their top of mind and align with them on what how you can help them achieve their goals. uh, a good IC is someone who knows when to deliver the news. So, not asking you all to create panics all the time, but if you see a project's deadline slipping, or if you see that there's going to be a scarcity of resource in this team, you would need more people, keep your manager in the loop so that they are not caught off by surprise at end of a quarter when you're not able to deliver a project. So what I truly urge you all to say is like, don't uh, spring upon a surprise to your manager or anyone that you work with. Drive your performance, communicate your goals very effectively so they can help you with that rather than thinking of them as someone who would tell you what to do next. Anti-pattern, someone who won't challenge the why and just keep the status quo. Someone who knows the solution before they are trying to get feedback. Someone who won't look at code or even code at all. Someone who is always waiting for others to give them problems to solve. These are all the things that you want to avoid if you want to be a good individual contributing leader. Now, this is a woman in tech conference, sort of, right? So I want to talk about leading as a minority. And you'd be like, hey, Rujita, you told all of these things to us before. Why are you repeating them? I want to highlight that even as a minority, if you're leading as a minority, you're still doing the same things, right? But just putting a different perspective or a different hat here, I don't want to give you different guidelines because you're a woman or a different guideline because you're a minority. I want to say that if you have a job, you belong there. You got the job because you deserve it. You want to find a style that works for you. Don't try to fit yourself in a box of someone else. Don't try to fit in someone else's like image of what an IC leader should look like. Ask for a seat on the table, and when you get the seat, use that seat and put it out there. Use your influence to amplify others who are not in the room and open the doors for others. And always know your worth. As like the keynote speaker said, like, if you are not respected, valued at your company, find a different job. You'll be valued somewhere else. Thank you.